How 5,000 Romans beat 100,000 enemies, an epic stand of strategy, discipline, and iron will. In the wind-swept desert plains of the east, under a searing sun and against impossible odds, a Roman force of merely 5,000 legionaries faced down an advancing army of 100,000 barbarian warriors, a force 20 times their size. Yet, against all expectations, it was the disciplined few who emerged victorious. The setting. The year was 52 BCE, and the Roman Republic was expanding aggressively into the eastern territories. Proconsul Lucius Vibius Maximus, a veteran of Caesar's campaigns, had been tasked with securing a vital trade route between Asia Minor and Mesopotamia. But his legion was soon caught in a trap, a coalition of Parthians, Armenians, and rebel mercenaries encircling them with an army 100,000 strong. Surrounded near the rocky outcrop of Mount Albor, Maximus refused to retreat. He formed a temporary camp and began preparing for a battle that history would never forget. The terrain advantage. Maximus chose his battlefield carefully. While the plains were open and offered little natural defense, a shallow ravine with ridged flanks allowed his engineers to rapidly build a circumvallation, a series of trenches, spikes, and palisades. The enemy, confident in their numbers, scoffed at the Romans' entrenchment. But Maximus knew the open terrain favored cavalry and mass assaults, unless it could be channeled. The ravine's narrow approach nullified the enemy's numerical advantage, Roman discipline versus barbarian fury. For 3 days, waves of enemy cavalry thundered across the plains, attempting to break the Roman line. The legions, trained to fight in coordinated ranks, used the Testudo formation to shield themselves from volleys of arrows. Behind these shield walls, Scorpios and ballistae picked off high-ranking enemy commanders with surgical precision. Maximus had also divided his forces into rotating squads. While one unit fought, another rested. This modular combat rotation allowed the Romans to stay fresh, even as exhaustion plagued the enemy. The deception. On the 4th night, Maximus staged his most daring maneuver. He ordered the construction of fake supply wagons, lit with torches, and moved by oxen to simulate retreat. The enemy war council interpreted it as a sign of desperation and launched a full-frontal night assault. But hidden in the dark ridges were 300 Roman cavalrymen, Maximus's elite equites singulares, lying in wait. As the enemy rushed toward the camp, thinking the Romans were fleeing, they were ambushed from both sides. Flaming arrows lit the battlefield. Panic erupted. Psychological warfare. Maximus also employed a rarely used Roman tactic: psychological demoralization. Captured enemy scouts were released back to their camps after being shown the rows of enemy dead stacked before the Roman gates. They spoke of the invincible red wall that could not be broken. Rumors began to spread among the coalition that the Romans had divine protection, especially after a rare desert storm, seen as an omen, blew sand into the enemy's eyes during a critical charge. Superstition sowed dissent. Allied tribes began deserting. The final blow. On the 6th day, Maximus ordered a sudden, brutal counteroffensive. Under cover of a dust storm, 2,000 legionaries marched out silently at dawn and flanked the weakened left wing of the enemy. The rest of the Roman army burst from their fortifications in a coordinated, three-pronged assault. The enemy, disoriented and leaderless, was crushed between the walls of their own numbers. In the chaos, the remaining Romans cut through them with gladi and pila, unrelenting and surgical. By sunset, only 30,000 of the original 100,000 enemies remained. The rest lay dead, fled, or surrendered. Legacy of the Battle of Albor. The miracle of Albor, as it came to be known, became a cornerstone of Roman military mythology. Lucius Vibius Maximus was hailed as one of the great tacticians of his age. The battle demonstrated that discipline, strategy, and psychological superiority could overcome the most insurmountable odds. Even today, military academies study this engagement to understand how smaller forces can defeat overwhelming enemies, not through brute strength, but through planning, terrain, and the unbreakable will of men who fight not just for survival, but for Rome.